Korean War lasted about 3 years, 1950 to 1953. And during those 3 years, 54,000 Americans were killed. And then add to that several 100,000 Koreans and Chinese, and another several 100,000 civilian casualties in Korea. By contrast, the Vietnam War, 8 years, 58,000 Americans died, plus several million Vietnamese and Lao and Cambodian. My name is Jessica Elkind. I live in Orinda, California, and I teach at San Francisco State University. I did my undergraduate education at Brown and started as a chemistry major, but then took several history classes. By my sophomore year, I realized that I was much more excited about doing the reading for my history classes, going to those classes, than I was about the work I was doing in my organic chemistry and advanced physics classes. And one of the history courses that I took pretty early on at Brown was a class on the Vietnam War. It was probably my favorite class that I took as an undergrad. But one of the things that I felt was missing from that class and from some of the other history courses was any perspective or context about those other places in the world. So I got my PhD at UCLA in 2005. I stayed on at UCLA and taught just as a lecturer for several quarters. Then I started in January of 2008 at San Francisco State. The history department is a really supportive, warm place, and people are doing really important, interesting work, and also are really passionate about teaching and love our students. I mostly work on U.S. involvement in Vietnam and Cambodia, but I'm interested more broadly in U.S. involvement in the world, especially in the 20th century and during the Cold War. The nation-building part of U.S. involvement in Vietnam, which at that point had really been assumed by the military through their pacification efforts. Not only the Green Berets, but also the main forces were unable to really bring the government into the provinces, and the war was ultimately lost in the provinces in rural Vietnam. It's very busy being a full-time professor, historian, and mother of 3. One of the things that I like about this career, though, is that I have a lot of flexibility. I don't teach in the summer, so I'm around a lot more in the summers. I can spend more time with my kids. Of course, that's also the time when I'm trying to get a lot of my own writing done over the summer and winter breaks. My book, 8 Under Fire, looks at American civilian aid workers in South Vietnam in the 1950s and early 1960s, so between the French War in Vietnam and the American War. And I argue that the failure of nation-building and development efforts really led to the U.S. military involvement, or more direct military involvement in Vietnam. Nation building can only work if people buy into the idea of that nation. And in the case of South Vietnam, there was not enough of that buy-in, certainly not enough popular support to sustain the government, no matter how much money the United States channeled to South Vietnam, or how many Americans, both military and civilians, who were engaged in the nation-building effort.